Please bow your heads with me. Lord, thank you for gathering us here today, and thank you for the opportunity for us to come here safely and be able to discuss issues in our city and how we can best move forward, Lord. I pray for wisdom, I pray for guidance, and I pray that we will be able to reach a decision tonight for many different issues that will ultimately glorify you. In your name, amen.
Please remain standing as we honor our nation's flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. May I have a roll call, please?
Commissioners Diana Cook. Present. Ryan Christ.
Present.
Cassandra Harvey. Present. Raj Mali.
Here.
Fabian Tarciano.
Here.
Vice Chair Randy Hall.
Here.
Chairman James Votes.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public business from the floor. If an individual is unable to stay through the entire meeting due to extenuating circumstances, a total of 10 minutes is provided at this time, during which input may be given regarding agenda items. Individual speakers would be limited to 2 minutes each. Do we have any early speakers, Mr. Liddicky?
None that have indicated, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Any person who would like to address the Commission on any agendized item is requested to complete a speaker's card for the recording secretary and identify the agenda item you would like to discuss. Each person will be given an opportunity to address the Planning Commission at the time such item is discussed by the Planning Commission. Speaker cards are available at the rear of the council chambers, and to my left, your right, next to Assistant City Attorney Ms. Corbett. Individual speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. For the public's information, this commission meets generally 2 times in a month. We usually meet 1 week prior to this meeting with staff to receive input on proposed agenda items. We do not deliberate. However, those meetings are held in public. The last meeting was 2 weeks ago. First item on our agenda is a consent calendar, which is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of October 21st, 2013. May I have a motion, please?
I move that we approve the minutes from the regular meeting of October 21st, 2013.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Please vote.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. The next item, these are new public hearings. This is conditional use permit number 13-10. The applicant is Chipotle Mexican Grill. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. For the record, we've received an uncontested letter from the applicant. However, we'll hear a brief staff report, please.
Good evening, Chairman Vos, Commissioners. The applicant is Chipotle Mexican Grill, and they're seeking approval of a conditional use permit for on-site consumption of alcohol beverages. This is a type 47, and it's a bona fide restaurant. The alcohol use is exempt from the distance requirements of the city code, since the alcohol is incidental to the sale of food. The applicant will be required to comply with all standard conditions from the alcohol ordinance. The proposed project meets the requirement of the zone, will not adversely affect nearby residences or businesses. The conditions of approval have been included, which would ensure that the safety and general welfare of the surrounding area would be maintained. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the proposed use and feels that it would provide for a unique dining experience to the area. This concludes staff's report. I welcome any questions.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions of staff? All right, do we have any speakers on this matter?
No speakers on this item, Mr. Chairman.
All right, then. So then, without objection, we'll close the public hearing on this matter and consider a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 13-17, approving conditional use permit number 13-10.
Second that?
Oh, sorry.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Please vote. The next matter before us is another public hearing. It's a revocation hearing on conditional use permit number 11-10 from the Planning Department of the City of Lancaster. So without objection, the public hearing is open on this matter. For the record, the Planning Commission will conduct the public hearings tonight on this potential revocation matter. The Commission intends to conduct these hearings, with respect and proper decorum, pursuant to Government Code 54957.9. These hearings are not intended to be an entertainment venue. Proper order will be maintained. We understand that many speakers will be offering their testimony tonight, so please give them the respect every citizen deserves throughout this hearing process. When called upon to speak, please address your testimony through the chair to the members of the Commission. We thank you in advance for your courtesy and your cooperation this evening. So without objection, the public hearing is open, and for the record, we have received a considerable amount of information. We've received email communications from staff, a couple of pieces of communication this morning and this afternoon. In our packet tonight was the conditional list of conditional use permit number 11-10 as adopted November 21st, 2011. We've received written comments from a number of people, voicemail as well. We've received 34 letters. Actually, they're the same letter signed by 34 folks. We've received, let's see what else. We've received additional correspondence, which the recording secretary has records of and will include their reference in the minutes for tonight's meeting. So we will hear a staff report on the consideration of revocation of conditional use permit 11-10.
Chairman Vos and members of the Planning Commission, the issue before you this evening is the consideration of the revocation of conditional use permit number 11-10. The business that authorized Industry Theater is located at 43415 Business Center Parkway. Back in November 21st of 2011, the Planning Commission, after conducting a public hearing that actually spanned a couple of Planning Commission meetings, approved the conditional use permit that authorized sale of alcohol and the establishment of this particular use at this location. As a part of that approval, the Planning Commission received a great deal of testimony, both for and against the proposed use, ultimately adopted a series of conditions that were intended to make sure that the use as conducted did not create a problem for surrounding area or the general public health, safety, and welfare. The applicant, Mr. Tully Huffaker, acknowledged and signed an acceptance of conditions, an acceptance of those conditions on December 1st of 2011. We provided to you an extensive staff report and attachments that we feel demonstrates serious issues with the compliance with those conditions, and because of a lack of compliance with those conditions, we feel has created a situation that is detrimental to the public health, safety, and welfare. In summary, there are 7 pertinent conditions that we feel we have evidence to demonstrate have been violated. And I think it's critical, once again, to note that our recommendation to you is based upon what the effect has been on the public health, safety, and welfare as the result of the violation of those conditions. We have outlined for you also in your staff report several incidents that have occurred at the location, the most serious of which was in February of 2013, involving a shooting of several individuals following an event at the location. As you can see from the information provided to you, there have also been other violations, not only of the conditions that were established by the conditional use permit, but other operating laws and regulations that this use needs to operate within, specifically criminal law and also administrative law as enforced by the State Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control. We have also indicated to you that the site has generated a significant number of calls for service from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department. The violations are summarized for you on pages 5 and 6 of your staff report. This outlines where we feel the violations have occurred and indicates to you the information that justifies, in our view, the fact that those violations have in fact been documented. As we noted to you in the staff report, staff has had an ongoing dialogue with the particular operator of this facility. Because of the severity of the one incident occurring in February, we feel that the fact that the city has not taken action till this point has demonstrated an effort on the part of the city to try and bring the use into compliance with those conditions of approval. But at this point in time, from a staff perspective, we feel that that has not occurred, and we feel that allowing the use to continue to operate in a manner that is not in compliance with these conditions does place a potential and significant threat to public health, safety, and welfare. So we have recommended to you the revocation of this particular use in accordance with the findings that are contained within your resolution. And we would further advise you that although we feel the documentation that has been provided to you substantiates this adequately, we do have present witnesses that can verify or answer additional questions regarding information that is contained in those attachments if in fact the Commission feels that it's necessary. We also have a number of speakers cards, as you indicated, and it is certainly your duty as a commission to listen carefully to all of the testimony that's provided to you as part of making your decision. One other issue that I would just bring up for you so that you're aware of how the mechanics of this hearing work, you will notice that there are 2 legal counsels present. One of those legal counsels, Ms. Corbett, is representing staff in this particular matter. From the Commission's perspective, Mr. Litvak, who is seated to the right of the Commission, is your legal counsel as a Commission if you have any questions regarding procedure or other issues in regards to this hearing. So I would ask that if that is the case, the Commission would direct those questions to that legal counsel. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have, but I would also ask if Ms. Corbett has any additional information that she would like to provide to you from the staff perspective.
Go right ahead, Ms. Corbett.
Thank you. I don't have anything to add at this point except to remind you that Detective Welly is here, as is Deputy Jordan and Public Safety Officer Anthony Perez. Their declarations were included in the staff report, so if you have any questions for them, they're here and available to answer.
Very good, thank you. And welcome to the Planning Commission. Mr. Litvak, good evening. No problem. All right then, thank you for the report, Mr. Liddicky and Ms. Corbett. Does the Commission have any questions of staff before we proceed with the hearing? Go ahead.
Mr. Liddicky, you said that we had to have 2 meetings to bring this in, so we explored a lot of options to allow this CUP to pass the first time through, because there was some acrimony that was going on between the church and the industry theater proposal. But you said something interesting. You said the city tried to bring into compliance. Could you give me an example of how the city tried to do that?
City staff, representatives of public safety within the city visited the site, indicated to the applicant and did investigations trying to determine the nature of what was occurring at the location. But this was not a visit that at that time was intended to instigate a revocation of the permit. It was really a fact-finding mission to see what was going on further from individual comments that have been made by public safety representatives as well as law enforcement. The city's attempt has been to try and find out what the violations were and see if there are ways to bring that into compliance. We've also, of course, tried to look at what's happened with the operation of the use. If you look at the logs for service from the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, in general, we've found, unfortunately, that there have been more calls for service following the very significant incident last February than there were before. And as is the case, the city always moves not rashly, but deliberately, because we recognize that this is a very significant issue, and we're not, from a staff perspective, someone who wants to go out and just automatically assume the worst about any kind of operation. So I think that we've been patient and diligent in our investigation, and have certainly not simply done this without previous interaction with the applicant or the business owner. So I would say that that is pretty much the path that we usually follow on these kinds of matters. It's certainly the same sort of path and approach that we took a couple of years ago when there was a use up on Avenue I that went through the same sort of situation.
These calls that went to bring this to the city's attention, where did they originate? Were they directed to the Sheriff's Department from patrons of the industry theater, or were they businesses in the park where this was at, the industrial park?
Individuals.
I believe most of them were from individuals calling about an incident or some noise or a fight or what have you. But again, Deputy Jordan is available to answer questions, and he might be better suited to respond to that question.
Would you like to interview the deputy?
Would it be prudent at this moment?
We have the authority to do pretty much what we want here tonight. So if you'd like to call which deputy? Which deputy you suggest?
That's Deputy Jordan.
Deputy Jordan? Good evening, sir, and welcome. Please proceed.
Good evening, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Deputy Lance Jordan. I'm a LA County Sheriff's Deputy assigned to Lancaster Sheriff Station. I am currently the Special Assignment Deputy. My duties include, or not limited to, Alcohol Beverage Control Liaison with the Van Nuys Office of the Alcohol Beverage Control State of California. I don't have the call logs in front of me. If you have them, I could read them to you. You have a question about a specific call? Do you guys have the logs in front of you?
I don't have a specific question about the calls. My question has to do with, I wondered where the calls came from. They were generated by patrons of the Industry Theater, and they went to LA County Sheriff.
That is correct, sir.
And then-
Generally, they were patrons at the location where an assault occurred. I know and one of the calls for service was to Antelope Valley Hospital, I believe, pertaining to a felony assault that occurred last January there. The person was transported from the location by LA County Fire Department to the hospital after being assaulted inside the location. There's a report submitted on that incident, but like I said, these are generally calls from patrons at the location.
So does then the Sheriff's Department notify the city that this kind of activity is happening? Is that a normal procedure, or?
What normally occurs, the field deputies that respond to these type of incidents fill out what's called a CAFE incident card. It's a card that's been used for long before I was a deputy sheriff at retail establishments of alcohol. What the deputies do is when they go there and they want to inform me of an incident that occurs at an alcohol beverage control licensee establishment, they fill out this card, turn it into my desk, at which point I forward that card, that information, and what other information, crime reports, arrest reports, etc., to the Alcohol Beverage Control Van Nuys office. And then through communication with the City of Lancaster, if a location is becoming a prevalent problem, lots of calls for service, maybe it falls under our nuisance abatement ordinance to the City of Lancaster, then that is forwarded to the Office of Public Safety.
My next question will go to our lawyer. He says that the patrons of the club called this in, and one of the violations was this too many nuisance calls, which violates the city municipal code. So would that nuisance calls then be generated by the Industry Theater's patrons?
According to the municipal code, there's no restriction on how the calls are made. Generally speaking, one would presume that if there were no disturbance, then there wouldn't be a call. Consequently, this panel can consider those calls and certainly can consider their number and the quality of those calls in making its own determination in weighing and balancing whether or not the applicant has in fact operated it in a fashion which causes nuisances. So this is not a court of law technically, so technical rules of hearsay and other admissibility are relaxed, and you may consider and give weight to the testimony as you see fit.
Thank you. I have no more questions of the deputy or...
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Thank you, Deputy Jordan. Any other questions of staff before we continue with speakers? Anyone? No? All right, then. So, Mr. Ludicky, we have speakers on this matter.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant himself has not listed himself as a speaker, so I want to make sure that if he has a representative that's speaking for him, that person gets to speak.
Yeah, typically,
on his behalf.
It's been our practice to allow the proponent or applicant. In this case, there is no applicant. There's a respondent, from my point of view. So if Mr. Huffaker or his representative care to offer whatever testimony they care to offer, we'll give you as much time as you need to say whatever you wish to say. So do you care to chat with us, Mr. Huffaker?
I asked the supporter how I submit a speaker. She said,
Sir, Canada understand a word you said because
apologize.
you're not addressing us through the microphone.
apologize,
So go ahead
Mr.
and say it
Bose.
again.
Well, I asked Ms. Corbett how to sign up with my speaker that I wanted to bring, and she didn't help me at all. So, unfortunately, I didn't know I was supposed to.
So were you here when I
Well, I was
opened
here
the meeting?
about- I got here
Excuse me.
at 5. Oh, I'm
Excuse
sorry.
me. I talk, you listen, then you respond. That's
I
how it
apologize.
works here.
Okay.
You're not listening to me. I speak, then you respond when I'm finished. When I'm finished. Okay, so let me ask you the question. Were you here when I opened the meeting and discussed the procedure here?
Yes.
All right. Is it clear to you what the procedure is?
Yes, I apologize for any...
You don't need to apologize, just answer the question.
Yes.
Very good. Go ahead and say what you have to say.
Okay, well, I have one gentleman who's going to be speaking with me who's right over here.
Please speak into the microphone so
I
we can hear you.
apologize. This is an awkwardly placed microphone. Well, firstly, I'd like to discuss those calls that were made, the nuisance calls. I'd like to point out 2 of them were me calling the sheriff, asking how I could hire a sheriff to sit in my parking lot for a potential larger event, and that was listed as 2 different nuisance calls. Also, there's about 5 calls that were a prank call. I don't exactly know what happened, but someone made a prank call, and I'm not entirely sure why those are listed as nuisance calls. Another thing I'd like to address is that by the city's own definition of a nuisance property, that is a property who has been misbehaving and receives too many nuisance calls and then is informed that they are a nuisance and then they refuse to alter their course, and I've never gotten any notice. They say that someone came to my building to talk to me, but really they just came to bully me and threaten me. That was a Mr. Lee DeRico. So they didn't really offer any help whatsoever. They just kind of came and yelled at me. Unfortunately, I tried speaking with them, and they were uninterested in anything I had to say. They were just interested in what they were trying to yell at me about. So that's my stance on the nuisance calls, because honestly, I've talked to people who work at Chase Bank, and they have 25 service calls a year, 25, 30 service calls a year. So to think that an alcoholic beverage establishment in the AV with only 5 calls or something, that's probably every establishment that serves alcohol in the Antelope Valley gets more than 5 nuisance calls in a year. I'm certain of that. Several of these other allegations, I think there's about 4 allegations that stem from Officer Jordan's statement. I have a court date coming up in regards to his fabricated statement, and I think it's inappropriate for us to discuss or consider anything that he said until my court date is finished, because that's just how court works. So I feel uncomfortable responding to anything in regards to Officer Jordan's statement. I think it's inappropriate for you guys to even consider it until after November 26th.
You know, we'll decide what's appropriate and inappropriate.
Well, maybe
So we
the attorney would like to decide.
excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry. You talk. I listen.
that's how it works.
Yes.
So we don't lose track of your statements, because you're going to have plenty of them, I would hope. The comment regarding someone threatening you, either a peace officer or a representative
Mr.
or
Lee
a
DeRico.
representative
I
of the
apologize.
city?
Yes. That'd be Mr. Lee DeRico.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
And who was that?
Mr. Lee DeRico.
Okay, thank you.
So he came with Officer Jordan, and they kind of just screamed at me and performed an illegal search of my property on off hours, which is not appropriate for ABC terms, because I actually went to the ABC to file a complaint about Officer Jordan, and it turns out that he is actually in no way actually correlated to the ABC. He's just a liaison, which essentially any officer is a liaison for the ABC. So he's kind of overstepping his rights in that sense. A lot of these violations that I'm seeing were based upon pictures that were from Facebook, and I assume, as your legal counsel can inform you, Facebook posts are not really legally binding. It's just a photograph, and an unfortunate thing is none of them you can actually tell are at my premises. They could be anywhere, anytime. You could have showed up there at 4 in the morning, taken a picture, and then am I somehow liable for what people do when no one's even there? So that and the statement accounts for pretty much all of my violations. So Facebook pictures and a fabricated police statement pretty much constitute the entire case that the city has against me. And unfortunately, I know you guys think I'm lying, but that's just the way it is. You guys have these images that say we don't enforce an in and out policy, and this is based on us having a flyer that says we have a smoking patio. I'm not sure there's any correlation between a smoking patio and allowing ins and outs. That's obviously just someone trying to just pester us, because you need a smoking patio. As I'm sure many of you are aware,
essentially every bar out here has a smoking patio, and for us to not have one would kind of be an issue because people smoke cigarettes and they need a location to smoke cigarettes. So that would be the no in and out policy. The proof of this is just pictures taken on Facebook that were tagged, as they say, at Industry Theater. I'd like to state that I could take a picture of myself right now and tag it at Industry Theater, and that does not mean that I am at Industry Theater. I assume not all of you are entirely aware of how Facebook posts work, but you can just tag anything, anywhere, at any time. So, in my opinion, any violation that's based upon photographs from Facebook are kind of just meaningless and arbitrary because there's no way to prove anything actually occurred. They do have an image of a guy drinking what appears to be a beer on my stage, and I can tell you guys I've had lots of artists bring Jack Daniels bottles filled with iced tea. They'll do silly things like that because they want to have the appearance of drinking on stage because that's what's cool, but they don't actually want to get drunk while they're trying to perform. So, I mean, I've had people do that, have props on stage. We've had people bring fake dead bodies on stage, and that doesn't mean that there's actually a dead body at the premises. So these photos from Facebook, in my opinion, are pretty arbitrary. One of the violations is failure to make available for inspection records establishing that all club employees who serve or sell alcoholic beverages had successfully completed responsible beverage service training. I am the only person who serves beer in Industry Theater. It's always me. If I'm in the bathroom, no one's serving beer and the room is closed. I'm always there. Officer Jordan somehow made this connection that when he showed up, I just kind of confessed a bunch of crimes to him, which is obviously ludicrous. But I mean, that violation right there is silly, and that's just solely based on the declaration. And that declaration, as I said, is pending in a court case on November 26th, so it would be kind of difficult for us to assess the validity of it until I am finished with my court hearing. The 10th violation, the use of an ABC license by persons other than licensee. I don't know how you let anybody use your ABC license. I don't know how I let anybody use my ABC license, but I always serve my own beer. I don't even know how letting someone use their ABC license is a possibility. I never really knew that was a possibility. But that violation is just kind of absurd because I don't even know how I would go about letting someone use my ABC license. The only violation here that I'm going to say happened, because it's the only one that happened and isn't based on Facebook and hearsay, is number 4, an armed security personnel in violation of CUP condition number 29. When I had a shooting, which was honestly the worst day of my life, I mean, I could have gotten killed. I was not happy that we had a shooting. I was not happy that the person who rented the venue lied to me. He signed a contract that pretty much lists all of my conditional use permit requirements. I went over them with him. He knew everything I had to do. He kind of just misled me. He brought way too many people. He told me it was going to be like 100 people there. It was just a really large, out-of-control event. I mean, before then and since then, nothing like that has ever happened. I mean, I don't want that to happen. I don't know why anyone would think that that's something I enjoyed or that I didn't mind that it happened, because that was devastating. I mean, I was depressed for months after that incident happened. We did have an armed guard, the promoter of the event, who rented the facility from me, who signed my contract and says he has to follow all of the requirements of the city and all my requirements. He hired security from an authorized, insured, bonded security company. They happened to send an armed guard over there. I told them we don't take armed guards. They sent over armed guards. When they were there, I mean, I didn't think it was going to be too bad of an issue because they're already there. It would be hard to send home someone and then try and replace them. But anyways, we did have armed security personnel on one occasion in February. We've been open for nearly 2 years. We haven't had anyone like that since. We haven't had anyone before that. And sometimes security companies just send armed guards. If they don't have an unarmed guard who's available, then they're going to send an armed guard because they're just trying to get a security guard over there. So number 4 is a valid complaint, and I apologize, and since then nothing like that has happened, and nothing even close to that event has happened there since. I mean, that event completely shook everything up. It changed how we book shows, it changed how we organize shows, it changed everything. These other violations are just based on Facebook pictures and nonsense, and things like being open on a Wednesday. We had a haunted house that was running on Wednesdays. I was under the impression that if we weren't serving alcohol or having live entertainment, we didn't have to follow the requirements of my conditional use permit. I figured we could have a haunted house where all the attendees were kids and their parents. I didn't realize that that was such a harsh violation that the city was going to shut me down. Same thing on a Sunday and Wednesday event. Those were both haunted houses. We did a teen night on a Wednesday. The church gave us permission to do it. We talked to them about it. It was just for kids. There was no alcohol being served. It was a pretty positive event. I see that's more proof that you have that we were open on a Wednesday. But as I recall, when I was going through my initial the initial thing for the conditional use permit, the church said we agreed with the church that if we had any special events that we could talk to the church about, and they agreed to let us be open on a Wednesday, then we could do it as long as we weren't serving alcohol. And that's what we were doing, and now that's on this list of violations against us. Another thing I'd like to mention is that all of these violations constitute grounds for revocation pursuant to Lancaster Municipal Code 17.42.110. I don't have the exact wording with me, but I'm pretty sure that's something to the effect of the Planning Commission has the right to consider revocation of any on-sale alcohol establishment. And after looking at some definitions, an on-sale establishment is a business that is actively engaged in serving alcohol. As of this last Wednesday, November 13th, we no longer serve alcohol, so we're no longer a on-sale alcohol establishment. So these municipal codes really should not be able to affect me anymore. And I'm not trying to do that to weasel out of anything. I'm trying to do that because I'm scared that I'm going to lose my business that I worked for, and I want to work with you guys so I can stay open, because it is definitely a positive influence in the city. I've brought out international stars that never would come to Lancaster. They never know that Lancaster existed if it wasn't for Industry Theater. Industry Theater literally changes kids' lives. I've heard kids crying when they heard that we were having this hearing. I mean, people love the place. And I'm here to do everything I can to work with the city. On August 20th, when they came to scream at me, they were concerned about an event, and I said, what's the matter with the event? And they told me, and I said, I'll cancel it. I don't care. If you guys tell me to cancel the event, I'll cancel it. You could just not like the act, and I'll cancel it for the city, because I don't care. I want to be open. I don't want you guys, I don't want to be here. I don't want the police coming and harassing me. I want to stay open, and I want to be able to continue doing concerts for the community. I'm not trying to be open just to make money. I don't make money. I am extremely broke. I mean, I'm just there trying to make it happen, just trying to, keep the doors open, trying to keep us having shows. We've done benefit shows, we've had food drives, we've had jacket drives, we've had toy drives. I've donated over $3,000 to, we had a family whose son passed away. We did a benefit show for him. We raised $1,000, went to him. We've done numerous benefit shows. I've donated money to the Breast Cancer Foundation. We've done all types of stuff. This one incident in February is horrible, and it was horrible, and it was kind of my fault because I should have been more on point, but I was just a little too trusting at the time. And since then, I've learned that you can't really trust people. And we've adjusted it. Nothing's happened since then. These calls that the city is getting, they're like kids loitering in the parking lot. I mean, you guys have to understand that sometimes people just call the police for no reason. And then for me to think that I'm in a position where I shouldn't be calling the police because I might get my permits revoked is absurd. I don't see why the police get to go back and forth on Lancaster Boulevard, and if I call them, I'm going to get shut down. If I had a cop drive through my parking lot every time we had a show, we wouldn't have issues. I've had police officers tell me to call the sheriffs when I'm having a big event so they know to drive through, and I've done so, and now that is on this list of nuisance calls. I mean, to me, it seems that the city is just pushing me in this one direction because they don't like that in February there's an incident. But unfortunately, this is East Lancaster, or I'm in East Lancaster, and East Lancaster is not the safest area. Honestly, it's the city. It's not me. I mean, I try my best. It happened there. There's shootings at McDonald's. There's shootings at everywhere. There's shootings at Walmart. There's shootings at high schools. I don't have any problem that high schools don't have. People sneak in alcohol. How am I supposed to stop 100% that people sneak in alcohol? I do my best. They say that they imply essentially that I was serving liquor, which is just absurd because I confiscated some bottles from some people and I just threw them aside and then an officer saw it. But what should I do with confiscated alcohol? I asked the officer. He had no answer for me. I've even called the ABC and said, what do I do when I confiscate alcohol from someone? And they say, well, you shouldn't need to confiscate alcohol because no one should have alcohol. But that's kind of a catch-22 because people are going to do it and there's no way to stop it short of just completely searching them beyond the level of comfort that someone might expect when they go to a concert. We can't strip search people when they come to my venue. We do our best. Sometimes things get messed up, but for the most part, we've had almost 300 shows and one major incident. I don't remember ever anyone getting beaten and taken out with an ambulance. I'm not entirely sure that even happened, but I mean, we have a comfortable place. I like being able to invite my family to shows. I like being able to invite my friends to shows. I'm not throwing shows just to make money so thugs can hang out in my establishment. It's offensive to me that I'm being accused of this stuff because I'm not a gangster. I'm not some tough guy. I'm not trying to cultivate a culture like that. I'm trying to cultivate music, and I'm trying to cultivate the community to get together and do something positive. And the fact that this is even happening is just really disheartening because I genuinely am out there every day trying my best. I'm at every show. I mean, I take alcohol from kids in the parking lot. I mean, I do everything I can do to stop things. I mean, people come just to hang out there. We teach them stuff. They learn. I mean, we're not just like some drug den that caters to gang members. I mean, I don't know what I could really do that would make anyone understand that. I know that every other local establishment that serves alcohol has a more tumultuous past than I do. I've researched this. They have more service calls than I do. Pretty much every bar in the Antelope Valley, from the Britisher, where you can smoke cigarettes inside, to Rubens, where someone got shot just a week ago or a couple weeks ago. I mean, someone just got murdered in the bathroom of Mango Tango, yet I'm the public safety nuisance. I mean, I brought some little white kids, these sweet people who come to my events. They're not afraid to go to my events. Why is that? Is that because they're gangsters, or is that because nothing ever actually happens at my establishment? In my opinion, this is just harassment from Leader Rico, as I stated, who has a notorious history of tormenting small businesses, as we all know. This officer who came with him, who obviously just isn't terribly concerned with his actual duties as an officer. He's more concerned with pleasing someone who's above him, who probably has some say in his upcoming career. And I'm just a guy who owns a business who tries his best, and I mean, I don't even know what I can say. It's just absurd that there's Facebook pictures, and now I'm going to lose my business because we did a haunted house on a Wednesday, or because a flyer said we have a smoking patio. I mean, I don't know what else I could say, but this is just, it's unbelievable.
Does that conclude your remarks?
Yeah.
There may be some questions, so if you wouldn't mind. Members?
Mr. Chairman?
Go right here.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. I'd kind of like to introduce myself and why I'm here and how I can maybe help you. My name's Ryan Christ, and I've been here my whole life. I like music myself. I'm on music blogs all the time. I went to concerts when I was young, and I'm still young. And when the mayor appointed me to this commission, he said, I want you to be kind of the link between the youth. So I want to make sure that, one, you get heard, that your kind of, situation here is assessed properly, and that, also, I want you to help me to be able to understand how to make a decision tonight. Because while I'm new to this, I do want to be able to feel like I made a good decision. So I kind of want to explain why, or kind of my thought process on it. And I'm honestly kind of conflicted, because I recognize this as, taking away a potential opportunity for you, taking away a business. And in my mind, that is the absolute last resort. And I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen to you, to anybody in our city. And so that was kind of the understanding. We get awards all the time for being one of the most business-friendly cities in the state and in the country. And the other side of that, what I have to balance is, the public safety side of it as well. So I understand and I recognize your arguments, about the hearsay and whatnot. And I do also recognize that incident did happen. 4 individuals were shot, and I can't turn a blind eye to that. So I guess my question to you is, when I'm kind of weighing those two scales, I guess, what should tip me to the other side? Why should I, vote to allow this when it is a violation of public safety, when that did happen? What is your argument? Give me a reason to not consider that and just to allow you to remain in business?
Well, I would say mistakes happen. High schools have had shootings. Are we going to shut down a high school because it's a public safety risk? I mean, are we going to shut down McDonald's because someone's been shot there? Why is it my fault? Do you think I encouraged gangs? Do I look like I was out there like gang banging with people? Like I'm a Crip or something? I don't want that to happen. That happened. It was terrible. I was in a room where someone was shooting a gun. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to get shot. I don't want my people to get shot. I don't want my friends who come to hang out with me to get shot. It happened once. It was the promoter. I went through my contract with him. If you saw my contract, it says you can't do this, you can't do this, no gangster rap, no this, you have to follow these security guidelines. He signed it. He said, oh, my cousin's going to play, my family's going to be there, and it turned out his cousin was a rather notorious gang member, and his family is like 400 people. And they just showed up. And honestly, these people were kind of not necessarily the most friendly individuals, so I didn't really have too much control over them. So unfortunately, I got in a situation that was over my head. And I think to shut me down because that happened once out of 300 events is just unfair. Because what was I supposed to do when it was happening? Am I supposed to go and tell these 400 angry gang members just to calm down? Like, I can't do it. And, I mean, I do my best to maintain it. I don't understand why we don't get more help from the city. I don't understand why I can't hire a sheriff to sit in my parking lot, but the Pioneer Event Center can. I don't understand why the fair gets sheriffs and I don't get them. I don't understand why me trying to hire a sheriff to sit in my parking lot falls as a nuisance call. I mean, I've tried to do everything I can. I mean, I'm at my venue every day. Like I said, I like inviting my family to these shows. I do not want them to be threatened. It happened once. It was terrible. I don't want it to happen again. It hasn't happened again. It never happened before then, and it hasn't happened since then, and I'm not going to let it happen again. And, I mean, it happens. I could completely understand if this was a pattern, but there's no pattern. The city, why haven't I been here before being warned or reprimanded? How come when I canceled my alcohol beverage permit, I had a perfect record with them, and they never received a single complaint against me? If these cafe calls that were supposedly happening were actually happening, I would have some violations on my ABC license. I don't. I have none. I dropped it. It was completely clean. I told them what was happening. They apologized, and they understood what was happening. They saw there was a shooting, but they know the ABC, and the ABC is a very strict organization. They know that anything can happen once. If it's a pattern, that's a whole different story. But anything can happen once. And who is anyone to say that it can't? Because, I mean, there's been incidents in city halls with shootings. And did the city close down? No. Did anyone say, oh, the mayor is dangerous? No. It just happens. People are angry, and sometimes they take out their anger. And who am I to stop it? Who is anyone to stop it? Honestly, that is a police matter. I mean, if I had sheriffs that were actually content helping me and helping the community, it never would have happened. If I got a couple people driving through, a sheriff actually drove through the day of the shooting. And I went outside and I was talking to him, and he was like, oh, this is a pretty weird crowd. And I was like, yeah, I know. Do you think I should cancel it? And he said, no, just be careful. And then he came back after the event, and he said, I could have told you that would happen. Why didn't he tell me to cancel it beforehand? It's really easy to say, oh, yeah, you shouldn't have done that once it's happened. But beforehand, how am I supposed to know? There's no way to stop anything or know it until the second it happens. And then it's easy to say, oh, yeah, you had a shooting. But a second before the shooting, like, who knew? Who knew that was going to happen? How am I supposed to know that? How is anyone supposed to know that? I mean, we honestly do, like, 3-4 shows a week. Nothing like that ever happens. These nuisance calls are, like, loitering and curfew and just nothing. I mean, I've never seen anyone get arrested at Industry Theater. I mean, I don't know what these nuisance calls are. I don't know what makes me different than anyone else. I don't know why the fact that I had a shooting in the parking lot after an event is really my fault. I mean, I understand what happened, I understand the correlation between the two, but I don't understand what really I could have done to prevent it, outside of knowing in advance that there's going to be a shooting and canceling it just by premonition or something. And I mean, I try my best to keep it safe. I don't want it to be dangerous. I just want to be able to do concerts. I mean, that's what I don't understand. If the city told me to change anything, I'll do it. I'll do anything you guys tell me to do. If you think it's the best, tell me, and I'll do it. So why are you guys trying to shut me down rather than working with me in advance? I mean, the first thing I heard of this was 20 days ago saying you guys are going to revoke my permits. I went 2 years without ever hearing from the commission, without anyone ever saying, oh, you better clean up your act. and now all of a sudden I'm going to get my permits revoked because of something that happened in February. It's just, to me, just something doesn't add up in that whole scenario. I don't think this is just a matter of me having a shooting. I think this is a more personal problem.
I see that. Okay. I think, too, what might be going on in some individuals' minds, and my own mind as well, is I think there might be a difference between allowing a security officer when they're not allowed to be there versus some random shooting. Those do happen everywhere.
Yeah.
And those they are difficult to control.
Yeah.
The one thing that you did state was that you would do anything that the city asked, in order to keep your business. One of those conditions was that you would not have a security armed person there at any time. That, verbatim, that's what it says. And so, in our mind, it's, we have to weigh that. You broke that violation.
Well, I broke a violation once in February.
It did happen, though. And
it did
so,
happen.
let me speak. And so, that's kind of my concern. That's what I have to justify in my mind is, do I allow this? Do we allow this as the city? If it happened once, do we just turn a blind eye to it and just, maybe it won't happen again? It's his hearsay. That's the evidence that we have here. That's what.
Well, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it happened once. How about you guys reprimand me and talk to me about what I could do in the future, instead of just shutting me down? We did have a security guard with a gun. He was from a licensed, insured, bonded company. How am I supposed to know that guy wanted to shoot someone? I called the company beforehand. I checked in on him. I got all their documentation, all their paperwork. That guy, I told the officers that were investigating, that guy wanted to shoot someone. I watched it happen. He just wanted to shoot someone. It's terrible. I didn't personally hire him. The promoter brought him in. They're from a company from Los Angeles. It just happened. It just did. And it's a one-time thing. And honestly, as I keep saying, I don't want that to happen. It's not like I'm just going to let another armed guard come in. That happened, and it was horrible. So I don't understand why it's not obvious that I'm just trying to do the best that I can. No one can do a perfect job. Stuff happens everywhere. And it's just a matter of how you react to it afterwards. It's not a matter of what you did beforehand, because that's arbitrary. Because it happened. Since then, everything's different. So it was in February. And then if it was such a big deal, why am I hearing about it in November? It's been, 9 months? And now suddenly I had an armed security guard once 9 months ago, and I can get my permits revoked. To me, that seems unfair.
Anything further, Commissioner? All right, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Traciano?
Thank you, Chairman Bose. When, I had the pleasure of watching your video you posted on YouTube. And, going back to the February incident and listening to you tonight, you just seem to keep shoving the blame. But it sounded like you sublease your venue. So, in that case, you're ultimately responsible for anything that happens in, on, or about the area. And then you talk about your liquor license and how people can take advantage of that. When you sublet your venue to somebody else for a cousin's party, you called it, do you allow them to bring in their own alcohol?
Nope. The only alcohol is just my beer, and I sell my beer personally every time we have an event, because that's my money. That was, now I got rid of it, but it was a crucial aspect of our revenue. So I would have no interest in letting anyone bring in alcohol or anything for a number of reasons, in addition to the criminal charges that could follow suit from doing something like that.
And, there's never been a case where there's been alcohol on the premises other than beer.
People have snuck in alcohol, and we've taken it from them and thrown it away. But that is an impossibility to stop. It's very easy to say, your security is inadequate, but people are sneaky. People are impressive. I don't know exactly how they do it, but they do it. And we
So the answer is yes, there was, other than beer on the premises, more than one time.
Just once.
More than one time? No, the only time is when the sheriff made their investigation and observed it. That was the only time that was other than beer on the premises.
I've seen people drinking in the parking lot before.
Pardon? Pardon?
I've seen people drinking in the parking lot before.
On the premise, inside your building?
No.
Never ever, just the one time then it just so happened is when the deputy, or I should say the detective, visited your shop, that was the only time alcoholic beverages other than beer were noticed? That's the only time.
Alcohol. It's impossible to stop.
Now, answer the question. If you can't answer the question,
I'm lying to you guys.
I really am not interested in hearing the same story over and over. I just want to answer the question, yes or no? Yes or no?
What is the question?
At any time where there was alcoholic beverages on your premises other than beer, any alcoholic beverages on your premise other than beer, yes or no?
Yes.
You understand the
yes,
question?
I understand the question. It's very leading, and it's not really entirely gathering the entire
Is it yes or no?
situation. I already answered that question. Did you hear me? I said yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Commissioner. If you have something more.
So when you sublease your venue and you say you know nothing about these other bands, I mean, in your world, in your culture, and as a promoter, you got to know something about the people that you're hiring and opening your venue to.
Yes.
And but you stated earlier that you knew nothing about the people that you hired for this President's Party.
If someone rents the place and they just lie to me, I don't understand what I could have done differently, other than just accusing him of lying and telling him to tell me the truth, because he told me it was going to be a family event. And what more can I go off of? Am I supposed to do like a just research that guy's entire life, or?
Understand, you know, this hearing is disappointing to me, because I remember when you applied for your application, you know, it took several meetings to put this together, and you stood there like you are tonight, making promises to us, agreed to all the conditions, and now conditions that are violating, that have been violated, you're telling us that none of them have been violated. You know, and
I am absolutely not saying that. I'm saying that, firstly, your evidence is just unbased completely. Things happen everywhere. At the Staples Center, things happen.
Agreed.
At the House of Blues, things happen. I mean, I do my best. That's what I'm saying. That's all I can promise, and that's what I do, because that is the truth. I am in there doing my best for every event. I don't want it to be negative. I don't want this stuff to happen. You guys behave as if I'm just trying to hide it from you, but I'm not. I was told by a sheriff to call every time that we were having a big event, and I was doing that, and now that I'm a nuisance, because I was doing what a sheriff told me. I mean, when you guys came to talk, not you guys, I apologize, when Lee DeRico came to speak to me on August 20th, I did what he wanted me to do. He said, cancel that event. And I said, fine, no sweat. So I don't understand how you guys can just think that you can mindlessly enforce every rule without any issues ever, because that's just silly. Because even here, you guys have disorder, and you guys have armed police officers. I just have some security guards and security shirts. We do our best, and that's all anyone can do. That's all any establishment out here does. And honestly, we do a better job than every local on-sale alcohol establishment. And that is backed up by our service calls and our history. So it's really silly to me, because we do our best and we do a pretty good job, and it's a pretty safe place. And I don't think you could really find anyone who would say otherwise, with the exception of a couple just angry souls.
thank you.
My question in regards to hour of operations, it says like you open till 1, but in the flyers says that you're advertising until 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
And even over here it says that we tend to have all-night rave party, which patrons would pay a door that camps in and out overnight. Would you explain that?
Well, what we're going to do, firstly, I was under the impression that I just had to stop selling alcohol at 1, because if you have a stage show that goes a little late, you can't cut off the Yin Yang Twins and say, oh, we close at 1, because that's how you get sued. So we've had a couple events run a little past 1. That event that says 2, I don't know where that flyer came from. I didn't promote it. That's not from Industry Theater. I can tell you that right now it says The Industry Theater. I've never put The Industry Theater on anything. I mean, I can make a flyer right now that says Led Zeppelin's playing tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that Led Zeppelin's playing tomorrow. That means that I just made a fraudulent flyer. Promoters can make things all they want, but then what happens the day of is a completely different story.
So are you saying that you were closing at 1 all the time, or it just
Yeah.
has happened, went beyond?
We always close our beer room at 1. We've had events where the performances are late.
But condition says that you're supposed to close everything at 1.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, sometimes it's hard to do everything like that. I mean, I don't think you can find a single business that hasn't had to do a couple things like that. I mean, that's just in the name of not getting sued. And then it's difficult telling someone who flies from the other side of the country that they can't finish their set because I have to be closed at 1.
And also the question, when you noticed that people are over like 400 people, did you take any action regarding that, or you were just...
The only event that we had that was over capacity was the event where there's a shooting. And
Right, but did you notice it was getting overcrowded?
No, I talked to him. He wasn't... I mean,
Did you
it's going to be hard to explain, but that guy was... And now that I look back and I know what's happening, he was a gangster, and he was not interested in what I had to say. He just wanted to get in and then do whatever he wanted. And honestly, I'm a young, little white guy, and he wasn't having what I had to say because it was too crowded. And I was telling him, I was like, we need to stop this, we need to calm down, and he didn't care. As soon as they were shooting, he just left. He took all his money. He took off. I mean, this guy isn't like a compassionate individual. He lied to me to get into place. He took his money, and then he left.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Hardy?
First of all, I'd like to say that this body, this commission, takes what we do for the city of Lancaster very seriously. And at least 5 of the 7 commissioners were on this body when you applied for this conditional use permit 2 years ago. We rooted for you. A lot of these incidents, the 12 that are listed, we asked you specifically if you could abide by these conditional uses, okay? And you said to us yes in every single item. But yet tonight, you stand before us, I'm speaking for myself, and you offend us, me, by saying that we're running this meeting in disorder. You just said that.
No, I said I'm sure you guys have had disorder previously.
It sounds like you said this meeting was in disorder, okay?
I didn't
So
say I
I'm not going to argue. Okay, I'm not going to argue that with you. But do know we have always done due diligence for any business here. We are for smart growth in this city. But you are standing before us with an attitude that you have not taken responsibility for anything listed here. I find it hard to believe that it's the poor me, and using your words, poor little white kid in this situation. You've used that term twice. Okay? It is not about race. It's not about the gangster rappers. It is for the mere fact that there were several violations. Okay? So that's more of a comment to you. I want you to just be clear, to understand that this body has nothing against you being in business. We rooted for you. Okay? 5 of the 7 of us were on this commission, and we voted overwhelmingly for you to go into business. So just leave with that thought, okay?
Anyone else have anything to add? Commissioner Cook?
I would like to say that we're for entrepreneurs, we're for business, we're for the youth. But I'm not picking on you, but your defense for every action is, what could I have done? So when you were uncomfortable with that one situation, large crowd, armed security guard, I mean, it's tick, tick, tick down the list. You should have called for help right away. Call the sheriff department and say, I'm in over my head, this isn't the culture I want, but you didn't do that. And I know it's hindsight now, but we're now in a position where we have to make a hard decision. So as much as we're respecting you, we're asking all of you to respect us. Okay?
Anyone else have any questions or comments? All right. So let's just be clear. You made a comment, and I'm not precisely clear on what you said regarding the surrender of your ABC license. So is it, in fact, the case that you surrendered your Type 40 license?
Yes.
And who'd you surrender it to?
To the ABC in Van Nuys.
I'm sorry?
To the ABC office in Van Nuys
And when did you do that?
on November 13th.
Okay. And you do recall, as Commissioner Harvey pointed out, the discussions we had here 2 years ago, the 2 hearings we had, and all the questions and all the commitments you made to us
Yes.
relative to all the conditions of approval of this conditional use permit that we're hearing about tonight. You recall your commitment?
Well, I recall having a previously built, entirely set up, booked out venue, and then being told the day of my hearing that I wouldn't be able to do it unless I made a bunch of requirements. So I was kind of coerced into a position.
So are you saying then that
Requirements.
without the pressures of business, you would not have agreed to those conditions 2 years ago?
I'm saying that if I shouldn't have any of these restrictions. I should not be able to open on Wednesdays. And then the concept that I'm going to get shut down for being open on a Wednesday, having a haunted house, is beyond my being able to understand or comprehend. But I do know that I was definitively coerced into a position where I had to agree to these requirements.
So as far as you're concerned,
as I was saying earlier, I follow all of these.
As far as you're concerned, this commission coerced you into accepting the conditional use permit conditions?
No, I'm saying I was coerced by the church in conjunction with this committee.
It's not a committee. This is the Planning Commission of the City of Lancaster.
Oh, I apologize.
So it's your opinion then, and it's your testimony that you were coerced by this commission and by your neighbor tenant into accepting the conditions that were imposed upon you, that you agreed to, signed an affidavit to, and which are recorded against the property in which you currently have an operation.
Yeah, well, I'm saying that I had a business that was completely ready to go and booked out and fully ready to go operational, and then the day of the hearing, I had to cancel thousands of dollars worth of entertainment. It's already built, the bathroom's already there. What was I supposed to do?
So I still don't know what the answer is. Is it did we coerce you or didn't we?
No, you guys were very helpful.
Very good.
I got a comment regarding.
Go right ahead, Mr. Trussian.
When you started to build out on the industry theater, you did not think you needed a business license?
The New Life Community Church told me before I signed my lease that they were happy with what I was going to do. And then the day of the hearing, they decided that they weren't happy with what I was going to do. So I knew I was going to need a conditional use permit, but I didn't see that anyone was going to complain about it until the day of the hearing.
Sounds to me, well, kind of a contradiction, because, I remember very vividly when you came to us. It sounded like you already had your business up and going when you came in for the conditional use permit.
Well, I had it all ready to start, assuming that I got my permits on the day that I thought I was going to get my permits.
And you did receive your permit?
No, I received my permits a month later.
Correct. After we took time to postpone the hearing, receive a little bit more testimony, and iron this all out for you. Mm-hmm. My personal belief is if we would have voted on it that first night, you would not have obtained your conditional use permit.
Okay.
But taking into consideration your desire, your wanting to open a business, run a business here, like Commissioner Harvey said, we went the extra mile, vetted this situation, heard more testimony to help you obtain your conditional use permit. But, after seeing the videos, looking at the YouTube videos, the posts, now all I hear you doing is accusing everybody in the city of being this and that. And
not everybody, just Lita Rico and this officer in this room right now.
Well, if you go back and read your post, you talk about the leaders in this community.
Oh, yeah.
People being corrupt.
Well, I didn't realize that Facebook was going to be brought up into this discussion.
Facebook is not being brought up.
Then what are you mentioning?
Again, it's just posts that I've seen that you sent out.
Well, I was threatened by a public safety officer on August 20th.
Well, then there are ways, proper channels to file a grievance.
Yeah, no, I tried. I tried meeting with him. I tried submitting a couple complaints. To me, it seemed that if I continued trying to complain against him, I would be arrested, as is the history with most people who complain about Lee DeRico. He has a very tumultuous past, and he is pretty scary to me. I mean, he got in my face, he screamed at me, he called me names, and he told me that he was going to ruin my life. And he told me, quote unquote, "I can't wait until you're in debt until the day you die." So I didn't know what I could do legitimately, because that is not a legitimate problem. That is the problems of someone with his own personal...
Okay, but by you standing there telling me that is like saying that these Facebook, the pictures of people drinking out in the parking lot.
Well, I mean, look at those pictures. Is that at Industry Theater? Is there any way to identify that as being at Industry Theater?
You sitting here telling me that Mr. DeRico is threatening you.
Well, he did threaten me. It's not like a question. He came and threatened me. It was in my face.
Are you telling me that is any different than these pictures posted on Facebook?
No, it's not.
Industry Theater.
No, it's not. There's no way for me to prove it, and that's why it's such a frustrating situation, because I'm just a helpless individual, a poor little white kid, if you will, and I'm being tormented by multimillionaires. So I don't know if you've ever been in a position like that, but it's genuinely scary. And if you'd like to look at those pictures, I dare anyone to prove that that's at Industry Theater, or I don't even know that could be anywhere, or when it was, or was it at an event, or was it not an event, or...
Nobody's questioning the photos. I was only questioning the photos based on your statements about Mr. DeRico.
Well, I see the photos being brought up in my violations, and just about every single violation that these photos somehow prove something, but...
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? I just have 12 questions for you. Were alcoholic beverages other than beer on the premises? Ever?
Yes, in the parking lot.
Thank you. Were alcoholic beverages in an area of the club outside of the 682 square feet serving area?
No.
But you just said alcoholic beverages were,
Well,
other than beer, were on the premises.
That alludes to it being inside of the building, which
Pardon me?
I apologize. I'm frustrated when being asked leading questions. I'm sorry.
These aren't leading questions. They're
I'm trying
basically
to
a
answer. Can I give
statement
my
of
answer when you
violation.
listen? Thank you. This, to me, it sounds like you were insinuating that I allowed alcohol to be inside of the building. Having alcohol in the parking lot is
I'm
an
just
impossibility
asking
to
you the
stop.
questions, if it was there or not.
No.
All right, so it's your testimony that no alcoholic beverages other than beer were ever on the premise, ever. That's your testimony.
If that's all you're basing this on, then you guys can just pull my permits right now, because I'm trying to defend myself and you're just bullying me.
All right, the next question, were alcoholic beverages ever consumed on the exterior of the premises?
I just answered that, did I not?
Pardon me? Yes or no?
Yes.
All right. Were there ever armed security personnel on the premises?
Let me think. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any concerts or other events ever continued past 1 a.m.?
So you can just pull my permits now, because you guys aren't
Pardon
worried
me?
about righteousness.
Pardon me?
Yes.
All right. Any concerts or other events which began before 7 p.m. on a Saturday?
Yes.
Concerts or other events were ever held on a Wednesday?
No concerts. It was a haunted house. It wasn't a concert.
Or other event?
Defined event.
Other?
Other, define other. Anything? What? Yeah, I've been there on a Wednesday. Is that a violation of my permit?
All right, thank you. Were any concerts or other events held on a Sunday?
No,
Never?
never.
Okay. Never open on a Sunday?
We did the haunted house on a Wednesday and a Sunday.
Okay, that could be considered an event.
Considered an art exhibit.
Did you ever fail to make available for inspection records establishing that all club employees who serve and sell alcoholic beverages had successfully completed responsible beverage service training?
No, but I'm the only person who serves, and I am eligible to serve alcohol according to the ABC.
So you didn't ever...
I don't have any other servers, so there's nothing for me to provide.
You never provided the records?
Well, there's no servers except for myself, and I am eligible to serve alcohol.
Thank you. Was the use of your previous ABC license by any person other than you?
Never.
No?
Never.
Never. Okay. Did you ever fail to enforce a strict no in and out policy?
No. We have had the occasional person who needs pills or certain personal items that a woman might need that we have allowed to go to their car, but to not do that I think would be outrageous.
Okay. And I think you've discussed your opinion of others who have indicated that maintaining or allowing the maintenance of a chronic nuisance property, a property...
Well, considering I've never received a warning, I am
is
definitively not a nuisance property.
A property that has generated more than 5 service calls during a 12-month period.
A nuisance, according to the City of Lancaster, is a premises that has been notified that is a nuisance, and it fails to rectify, and I've never been notified of anything like that.
Okay.
So I cannot be a nuisance, according to the city.
All right. I think that's all we have for you. Thank you very much for your testimony. Mr. Ludicky, Ms. Corbett, would you care to address those the comments now, or would you wish to wait until we hear all the other public testimony?
No, we'll allow the rest of the testimony first.
All right. You're keeping copious notes, I hope.
Craig Greatman.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, did the CUP holder leave the room?
Say that again.
I noticed that the, what I call the applicant, the respondent in this case, has absented himself from the proceeding. The chair either has to make a notation that he voluntarily left or wait until he gets back.
You know, Mr. Latvick, people come and go all the time. Maybe I had to go to the restroom.
Mr. Gutman, is that it?
Greatman.
Greatman. Mr.
Yes.
Greatman stopped me in the hallway on the way into the meeting, and we had a discussion about him talking about a mutually beneficial relationship he would have with Mr. Huffaker. So I wanted to inform all of you that I had that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. Excuse me, ma'am. I'm sorry, ma'am, I can't hear you clearly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And, excuse me, please, Miss, is it Pastor?
Yes, sir.
Pastor Greatman if he wants to forego his comments and allow you to come to the podium, that's fine with us.
Well, I was hoping that we'd wait until Mr. Huffaker would return so that he could hear the comments.
And you're related to him?
Yes, I am. I'm his grandmother.
Well, in deference to you, we're going to recess for 5 minutes, if you don't mind, Pastor, and hopefully he'll return and we can have our conversation again. So, we stand in recess for 5. Thank you.
Just come right back here.
Back in session, and thank you for your patience this evening. Now, is it Ms. Golub? Is that?
Yes.
All right. I thought that was. Thank you. And I appreciate you pointing out Mr. Huffaker had not been in the room while folks were potentially offering testimony. It's important that we all understand what's going on here, and it's important that Mr. Huffaker hear everything that's going on. If he chooses to leave, that's his business, but if you're not going to stay, just let me know, if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Huffaker. If you're not going to stay for the whole hearing, if you decide to leave and not come back, please let me know, so we'll know what to do then. Pastor, please, you're next.
Hi, my name is Craig Greatman. I'm a pastor of Real Life Community Church. My intention to be here was actually to be side by side with Tolly to express a strategy for helping him. I love the Antelope Valley. I'm from Lancaster. I've returned to plant a church. My family has been here for many years, and so this is my home, and I want to make the Antelope Valley a better place. And in planting a church here, a non-denominational church, I've been a part of the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast as a presenter. I have a Master's of Divinity from Liberty University. I was bar mitzvahed at Beth Knesset Bamidbar here in Lancaster. I've been around here. All that is to say that we care a lot about the kids here, as I'm sure many of you do, and we believe that that industrial theater has a great potential. We recognize that I've only been back since September of last year, and I have actually been privy to a couple of events. I went there for a couple of hip-hop events. The people whom I serve are musicians in the area, a lot of kids, young people involved with hip-hop here and stuff like that, and so my heart is to see young people have an opportunity to express themselves, and I'm sure it sounds as if you've really supported Tolly in that venture initially. Our big idea, my partnering with Tolly, this is just really new. But first of all, I would say that it's obvious that the young man needs coaching just to be in this sort of atmosphere, and just to be loved on a little bit and supported in how to handle this sort of situation. His life is at stake, his livelihood is at stake. He got really upset and nervous, and so I don't want to make excuses for the young man. I want to say to you that I would love to invest in him personally by coaching him, by walking forward with him, by saying, let's see how we can be a presence, a Christian presence. We can bring our friends and our families to your events. We are called as Christians to be salt and light, not to avoid such places, but to be at such places. And so we have just a small sampling, a couple young men. There were a couple others here who would also say we'd love to go to those events. We'd love to be a positive influence there. We'd love to walk side by side and develop some strategies to say, hey, let's be there as a peace offering. We want to be obedient to the law, obviously. We want to make sure that the place stays open. And we have some other plans. I don't have enough time to express our meeting together, Tolly and I, but we have a lot of strategies that we were going to develop to walk forward. And I didn't know I was going to have only 3 minutes because we were going to walk. We have
okay. The 3-minute rule is for other than the applicant, but thank you for your comments, Pastor.
Okay, God bless you. Thanks.
I'm afraid I can't hear you unless you come to the podium, Mr. Huffaker.
I apologize. I was under the impression that I could select someone to speak with me that would not be limited to 3 minutes. Is that the case?
Normally it is not. However, since this is a unique hearing, and according to counsel, a quasi-judicial action, then if there's no objection from the members, we'll allow the pastor to continue.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. That's a excellent suggestion.
Totally, why don't you
The
come?
vice chair suggested maybe you both would be there together, and then
Absolutely, sure.
that's all right with you.
That's absolutely okay.
All right, go ahead.
So, I think a lot of stuff, really negative stuff, has gone down, and there needs to be some ownership on Mr. Huffaker's part to say that these things happened. Some of them may not have, but some of them did, and where there's smoke, there's fire. I think that that's legitimate to say that there's been some mistakes, and that the giving up of the ABC license is one of those sort of things to acquiesce to. In other words, we're not going to do this part anymore because we didn't do it well. But what he does do well is plan events, and what he does do well is get talented artists, and what he does do well is have a forum for young people to gather. And I think side by side, what I plan to do is be there in civilian clothes, be there with young men and young women. I was an Army Ranger. The way that's pertinent is because I bring peace with me, and I know how to be a stable influence. And I have the Lord Jesus Christ. So those two things bode well in certain situations. And we would have some supporters be alongside Tully, and we would walk through. I would like to walk through the CUP with him. I haven't seen it all. I saw some of the things that were being held against him, and that's a pretty lengthy list of rules violations. And I don't think that we should sit and try to deny every one of those things. I think we need to take ownership of those things.
We'll be happy to share it with you if you'd like to review it, and we may call you back if you'd like to do that.
Oh, I read them last night. The ones that they were presented.
No, the entire condition list.
Oh, I would like to do that with Tully and talk more about this. But I just want you to know that we would like to make an effort to be where lost people are. And we would like to be there to show the love of Christ in a clandestine way. And be there as salt and light with this young man by his side and say, let's have fun together. Let's see how we can bring safe entertainment. Because it's a valuable asset to the community. You guys have said that already out loud. It's a great place. It has a potential to be a fantastic place. And I think without alcohol there, it's even more of an opportunity in some respects. So,
just to be clear from both of you, and Mr. Huffaker, I think I understood you to say, and I want to be clear, that you've surrendered your alcohol beverage license, which was a principal element of the conditional use permit that was approved. And then you made a statement, and I wanted to ignore it, so I don't remember it precisely, but you said something about you might as well give it up, or something to that effect. Maybe I misunderstood you. Do you recall what you said?
I was just expressing frustration at the line of questioning I was receiving from you, because I think you're more worried about specific guidelines as opposed to whether or not it's actually a safety risk, and it's frustrating to me. I apologize.
Look, I'm not asking for an apology. I wanted to be clear on your statement. That was all, and it was
my statement was
a
that
level of
this is
frustration,
very frustrating,
right?
and I apologize.
Did you get the ABC permit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pardon?
The ABC permit is gone. I gave it up voluntarily.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure. There is one aspect, though, that I think needs to be said out loud, and that is, I wasn't realizing that the place is unavailable on Sundays to be opened. One of the realities of our partnership is that we gather currently without a public space. And so one of the desires for us, we'd like to meet at 4:30 on Sundays. and the other church is not open at that time. And we wanted to see if it was possible to gather in that place on Sunday afternoons for the sake of worship. But that would be a contingent. That would be a contingency on our actually working together. So I just need to be real honest about that. It's not just.
Well, depending on the outcome of this hearing, there are processes in place through the planning department of the city, Mr. Ludica's office, that you would need to pursue.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to get into the belt and suspenders part of this thing, but
Fair.
appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
Any other testimony you care to offer?
No, do you have any
All right.
questions?
I don't know if there are any questions from anyone. No? Yes? No? All right, thank you very much. All right, then. The next speaker, please.
Keontae Bluford. Hope I pronounced that correctly.
I didn't hear it clearly. What was it? I'm sorry?
It is Keontae Bluford.
Thank you, and welcome.
Well, I have worked at the Industry Theater for about 6 months now, and during the time that I've worked at the Industry Theater, I have been the liaison to the youth. I have booked events, I have put on events, and at each of these events we have secured the building itself, made sure no drugs or alcohol have entered the premises, and mainly we try to provide the youth with something to do out here. We try to make a safe haven for the youth. Where I work for the Grizzly Youth Academy. I am an RMP officer. I recruit and help youth get out of trouble. And every time I'm at the Industry Theater, I see something we can change for these youth future. We can make them musicians, or we can change their lives in some way. The Industry Theater is not just a concert venue. It's a way of life that we've built out here in the AV. We have made a name for ourselves. We have brought the Lancaster area on the map. And now we're taking these children who have been either expelled from school, lost credits, and we're sending them to an academy where they can earn those credits back. They can make a name for themselves and come back and feel a sense of accomplishment and feel proud of themselves. And as you guys mentioned earlier, yes, some people do sneak in alcohol, but that is addressed as soon as it is seen. The alcohol is taken off the premises or confiscated by security officials that we have at the Industry Theater. We try to do the best that we can to provide safety for the patrons that come to the Industry Theater. That's all I have, gentlemen.
There may be some questions if... Anyone? Commissioner Trossiano.
Thank you, Chairman Bose. So you're actually working with youth at the Industry Theater as an outreach?
Yes, sir.
And is there an official program in place? Are you doing it through any schools or?
Yes, sir. San Luis Obispo, the National Youth Academy, Grizzly Youth Academy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any other speakers, Mr. Ludica?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Izzy Carbajal?
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, I've been in a band right when we started. Industry was just about opening up. It's a really cool place. It would be really upsetting to see it shut down, just because it gives us, like they were all saying, gives us an opportunity to go do something good. I know plenty of people that don't go to Industry, they'll go off to house parties, do other things. But me being in a band, this is kind of an escape for us. If we weren't doing this, who knows what we could be doing out there. I've met kids there after my band has played that say I want to start a band after seeing this, after seeing this venue. A lot of kids, it's changing their lives, and it's helping us out a lot. So we would hope it doesn't get shut down. And the security there, they've all been saying, right when they'll see alcohol brought into the area, they'll try and take it away. I've had personal experiences, my band would bring a cooler of just say water, just before on stage, and Tully himself would come over. He would search the cooler just because he was concerned. He would see that there's nothing in it. He would just let it go. And it's just, all the staff is like that. They're really friendly. They try to make it as safe as possible, and it's a really cool place to hang out. So, yeah, I just want to say that.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions from anyone? All right, thank you very much. Another speaker, Mr. Ludicky?
Yes, and I can't read the last name very well, Mr. Chairman. I have Stephen Redondo.
Evening and welcome.
How's it going, guys? I hope you guys are having a great day. Sorry about my friend earlier. I'm a really close friend of... actually, my name is Stephen Redondo. I'm a really close friend of of Tully Huffaker. I'm also a GYA graduate as well, too, from San Luis Obispo Grizzly Youth Academy. Like Keontae was saying earlier, we do help the youth. I know sometimes, out here, it's just really bad area growing up around here, I never really went to house parties and stuff like that, or, I always try to stay away from all that. It's just, basically the point I'm just trying to make is that, revoking these permits is it's hurting, I mean, not hurting, but, just revoking it is just, I don't know, it's just been really stressful. And,
Take your time.
Yeah, sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, it's just really stressful because I'm there for him, and I do see all the stuff that he does, and he does everything he can, and it's really hard, and he does the best that he can, and it's just somewhere where all the youth could come together around here, and it's just like me myself, I want to start a business one day out here, and just seeing what he's been through, I'm just like, I don't know if this is for me, but I still want to do it, I still want to guide all the kids, out here, just into the right direction, coming from me, before I went to GYA, I had a stroke at 16 from doing too many drugs, and going to GYA just helped me out, and I just want to just guide everyone in the right direction, and I just want to see Industry Theater open, because it's basically like, my heart now, and just a lot of people fight for it, and just they love the place, and I just think revoking the permits would just be a really awful idea. And that's all I have to say, and I hope you guys have a great night.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions?
Sharon Bose, I actually do have a question for Mr. Redondo. When you just mentioned that you were interested at some point in starting a business in the city of Lancaster or in this area, but perhaps you've seen what Mr. Huffaker has gone through. Can you elaborate on which side of it that you're speaking of? Is it what has happened at Industry Theater, or his interaction with the city of Lancaster?
I just think it's just not because I know you guys helped out a lot. Like, I was here for the first meeting, and you guys did help out. It's nothing to do with really the city. It's just the people that we deal with. It's just the community. Nothing really to do with the city. I mean, it's you guys are can be strict or whatever, but I mean, I think the main problem is just just the people that come in and out. Like, there's very good experiences, and there's just the bad experiences that I see coming out here, and yeah, just basically it's just an all-around thing.
So we're counting on folks like you, the youth, to maybe stomp out the bad guys and get rid of, and follow the rules. That's all it is.
Yes,
it's a matter of following the rules.
Yes, ma'am.
Very easy.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
No worries, you guys take care.
Chun, could you come here a minute? Would you give that to the pastor? Thank you. Mr. Ludicky?
Nathan Wheeler.
Mr. Wheeler. Welcome.
My name is Nathan Wheeler, and Industry has been basically a safe haven for me. Because I went through a lot in life, almost committed suicide, and then going to Industry, having that positive environment really helped me a lot. And Julie has been a really good friend of mine, and if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have got my musical start, because my first show was actually at Industry, and basically it's been a positive place for all the youth. It's given, I know personal from people, that it's given them it's gotten them off the streets, out of drugs, out of the alcohol that's on the streets, and putting them in a positive environment. And almost at every show I've been to, I notice it's all positive environment, no drinking or alcohol is allowed in. And I've noticed when people do bring it in, it's confiscated. And I've noticed that, if industry really got shut down, it would be really hard for us, as musicians, because we really don't have any place else. And we have house shows, but that usually is not a safe place for us, because, I've known from personal hands that we don't feel safe around, house shows environments. And industry has basically been just positive for all the musical acts out here, and it put Lancaster on the map. We've gotten big name acts out here, and it's putting Lancaster on the maps, and it's bringing money towards Lancaster. And I just would be terrified to see it get revoked, their license revoked. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you for your comments. There may be any questions from anyone? All right, thank you for your comments. Any other speakers?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Charles Wheeler.
Charles Wheeler. Good evening. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Charles Wheeler. I was going to say, when I first heard about industry getting shut down, it really broke my heart, because there's a lot of kids that industry is their life. And I know I'm crying right now, but it breaks my heart that I see the cops harassing Tully, and that's an everyday thing. These cops in AV always harass people, and I don't know why. And I've been to a lot of concerts here in AV, and the only place I felt safe was at Industry Theater. I've been to the AV Fair, and I never go to concert there anymore because there's always riots and shootings, and I don't see why. Why don't you guys shut down the AV Fair? There's always shootings there and riots. And Bex, and I heard about Bex, they're the killing there, and that's still going strong. And to shut down the Industry Theater for one incident, it really breaks my heart when I see this guy, Tully, really trying to change, because he gave away his license to sell alcohol, and that was the big money for industry, and to give that away, you can see his heart where he's trying to change. And for you guys just to try to shut it down it makes me think you guys don't care, which you guys probably do, but it really breaks my heart because a lot of kids would have no other outlet to go to if it wasn't for Industry Theater. My brother, he plays music, and if it wasn't for Industry Theater, he'd be dead. He tried to commit suicide. And I'm really thankful for Tully, and I'm really thankful for Industry Theater for being there, for saving kids' lives, for getting kids off the street, for getting kids in a safe environment where they can have fun. And it really breaks my heart to see Industry Theater get shut down.
Thank you for your comments. Any other speakers?
No other speakers' cards, Mr. Chairman. There were, during the testimony, a couple of statements made that the Assistant City Attorney would like to offer some clarification in regards to.
Certainly. Before you do, Mr. Huffaker, do you care to offer any rebuttal to any of the speakers who have offered comments to us this evening? Anything you wish to add to your testimony?
The only thing I'd really like to add is that you guys have legal counsel, and they have legal counsel, and I don't have legal counsel, and I only had 18 days to prepare myself for this, and I feel it would be right for you guys to give me a continuance to obtain legal help so I can not be going at this by myself, which is extremely frustrating, as I'm sure you can assume.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Corbett?
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just like to note for the record that Mr. Huffaker has shown great remorse here, and I believe that he's genuinely remorseful. Having said that, however, I'd also like to note for the record that he has provided no evidence that he's made any changes to his operation to verify that there are no guns coming into the club. He's provided no evidence to establish the changes he might have made to ensure that he's limiting the number of patrons so that he doesn't get a crowd that's out of control. And so those are still areas of great concern. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. The public hearing is still open. Mr. Ladvik, anything you'd care to offer?
No, if there's any questions about the legal issues that have been raised, I'm happy to address them and to invite the Assistant City Attorney to comment if there are questions in that regard.
All right. It's appropriate to leave the public hearing open while we ask our questions in case we need to interview anyone else who is here who's offered testimony. Ms. Golub, Ms. Golub, please come to the microphone, can you? No hurry. Take your time.
Glad I can make it.
We've been here quite a while, and we'll be here as long as necessary. So, Ms. Golub, and welcome.
Thank you. And I remember being here when all of you so graciously encouraged Tully in establishing a place where young people could attend safely, or as safely as we have the capacity as adults to create for anybody. So I appreciate having this opportunity, but the opportunity to Tully is so serious. It's his creature. It's his baby that he's been working on. He has actually physically painted the place, put down the floors, did all the creation, helped build the stage, helped build the restrooms, and some of these young men who are here today worked with him physically. They physically clean the restrooms after the people leave. They physically go out to the lawn the next day and pick up any cigarette butts to make sure that it's clean. The work that has been put into this group of young people, young adults, is really amazing. And plus, they bring music of a culture that some of us might not enjoy, but there's a whole group of young people who enjoy it. And nothing is against the law that they have any control over. Now, a nuisance could be said when you talk about premises. Is it inside, outside, what days? All these things do have certain meaning to your commission. And your commission has a duty to keep Lancaster safe. But isn't this part of Lancaster's safety program to have a location that young band people could practice? They could come at other times other than the event in the evening in order to have a place that has good sound equipment and you could hear them practice, and to have an opportunity to bring their friends. And it's very inexpensive. And the one who knows how inexpensive it is the one who has been assisting Tully, because he does not gouge people for money. Money was not his primary purpose, and frankly, I wish it were a little bit more of his purpose. But understand that many adults are grateful for this opportunity for young people. Many adults, such as myself, are grateful for having supported it. This has been a private support. It has occurred to me many times to see a good tax attorney and see if we could make it an organization. But that was not Tully's view. Tully's view was that it should be private, run by people from this community who want to bring the music and safety and friendship and companionship. And this is why it's so heartbreaking. And you hear the young people who are saying so. It is heartbreaking. Now, I urge that this commission consider continuing the hearing and allowing Pastor to offer his assistance and experience and allow other people to, so even yourselves if you have the time, to assist in any kind of construction, constructive suggestions that might help, and also to find out legally why it is that this commission was called, and is there any competition within the community that is eager to combat and compel Tully to lose his license? I don't know. There was no opportunity to find out because there wasn't enough time. But Tully's not looking to have an investigation. He's not looking for a lawsuit. He's looking to continue in business with the support of the Lancaster Planning Commission. And as he said, he even gave up his ABC license. And that is a big step. So do continue it so that he has a further opportunity to finish up the people he's now booked and people who are coming in. If he had time or information that there would be attorneys here, he probably would have been able to hire an attorney to represent him, and the attorney would say, you need evidence. One of the things that the assistant city attorney commented that he offered no touching evidence. Testimony, apparently, is not sufficient for her. But certainly he would have had the opportunity to bring the agendas. He would have had the opportunity to show that there were at least or approximately 300 events that people attended. And that is quite a record for a new entrepreneur to start where there are such limits, like not having Sunday in the past, not having Wednesday in the past. Those are big nights. Those are big nights, and those are big nights for people coming from out of town, the bands I'm thinking, because the big bands who play in Staples and other centers, the big bands on their way in or their way out of downtown LA or Orange County, they stop at this little place, Industry Theater, and they stay in Lancaster hotels, they eat in Lancaster restaurants, and they bring guests from other sections. So Lancaster benefits from money, from taxes, from adding a future by this group. And I believe that he would have understood better to bring in the documents that would make the assistant attorney more comfortable, to show that all these events have gone through with good safety records. So there had not been a nuisance. And now other events, that one instance where the security guard was the one who shot, not the gang, but the security guard, and no one was killed, thank God for that. But it was the security guard who should not have had a gun with him, who Tully did not hire for the gun. That whole security system was hired by the booker. And the booker had signed the contracts, and Tully would have been able to show you the contracts today had he anticipated that this would be such an in-depth hearing. So I thank you for your attention and time, and consider the continuance of the hearing for a future time so that you would have the opportunity to see that this is not a nuisance. Thank you.
Ms. Golub, as I recall, from 2 years ago, and please correct me if I'm misstating this, you were the co-signer on the lease for this project?
I was, and I was guaranteeing the lease for 1 year. I'm no longer subject to that guarantee.
So
I have loaned substantial sums of money as a lender, as a creditor. So, of course, I do have a financial interest in Tully's success.
That's really not the
Maybe
question.
someday you could pay me back.
That's not where I was going. I just, since you were a co-signer on the lease and I didn't know the length of that, you wouldn't have any knowledge of the status of the lease on the property?
As far as, whether it's in good standing?
Yes, huh?
As far as I know, that it's been adjusted a little bit, but it's in good standing, as far as I know.
All right.
But the truth is,
I'll ask Mr. Huffaker, and then we'll get it clarified. But again, thank you for your comments. There may be other questions, I'm not sure. Anyone?
And just to let you know, I did try to keep out of the business, even though I'm very interested in the operations of the business. If you want me to be of help to him, fine. I've had a certain amount of experience, and I'd be happy to help. I just wanted him to work with the fellows in this community and the women in this community to make this operational without an aged adult telling them what to do.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your comments, ma'am. May I ask you to respond, Mr. Huffaker, relative to the status of the lease on the property, if you don't mind? You don't have to, but I'm just asking if you can tell me what the status of the lease is. Still in force and full effect?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
Do you recall when, 2 years ago, when your landlord addressed this a couple of times relative to the lease?
Yes.
Made statements that if there were problems there, he would immediately cancel the lease. Remember those statements?
Yes.
So that none of that's happened.
Well, I've yet to be evicted, and my landlord is in good standing with me. My landlord is pretty happy with me as an overall person. He likes what we do. He sees all of our events. He watches the
All right,
tape.
very good. Very good. Thank you. All right, then. Before we get comments from staff, a couple of questions. This hearing is called under the pertinent sections of the Lancaster Municipal Code, and there are certain requirements of noticing for this hearing, and I would like you to clarify what those steps were and what additional steps were taken relative to noticing co-tenants, if any, and addressing the comments relative to legal representation from either both the Assistant City Attorney and Mr. Lappick, our counsel, and your comments relative to the request for a continuance. Go ahead. Whichever would like to go first.
I'll start with notice. We provided notice. There are special noticing requirements for the consideration of a revocation. We did provide the normal notice that we would for any other kind of land use action hearing. That included a publication in the newspaper. It included a mailing to all property owners within a 500-foot radius of the property. But we also were required and are required under the city's municipal code to provide registered mail noticing to anyone who has interest in the property, interest in or appears to be under some kind of apparent control of the premises. So we provided that notice also. We also provided, and this was at the direction that Commission gave us several months ago regarding multi-tenant locations, we did send out one of our staff members to hand out notices to the businesses, the other tenants that are in that location, so that they were aware of it. The only thing that was not provided was a posted sign on the property, and that's quite frankly because there's nobody in command to do that on this kind of a proceeding. But other than that, notice exceeds what else would normally be required.
Well, the sign posting is not a condition of the municipal code, is it?
It's actually done to try to provide another way to make sure notice is given, but it's not a mandatory type of thing.
Right. Okay. Members will have other questions, I'm sure, so if you have them, let's bring him forward now if you want to, or he can complete his comments, or they can complete their comments, I should say. Go right ahead.
What was the lead time given to Mr. Huffaker?
Notices were provided 20 days prior.
All right, anyone else?
Did you get a response back from your registered letter to the landlord or property interest?
Yes, I believe that every one of the registered letters that we sent, acknowledgement was given that it had been received.
Go ahead.
Forgive me for being kind of new. Is this the time where we'd like to deliberate, or is this more just questions directed to staff?
Actually, we're still in public hearing, and staff and legal counsel will share their remarks with us, and we can ask whatever questions we want. The reason I left the hearing open is so that if we have questions of any of the folks who provided us with affidavits or statements or witness statements, we can call on them and not have to reopen the public hearing. So the purpose would be to keep the public hearing open until we're prepared to deliberate, and then we would close the public hearing. So you can ask your questions at this point, or you can wait until we deliberate. It's entirely up to you.
Sure, I'll ask it now. With this whole situation, I'm kind of excessively conflicted with the whole thing. I see two sides with very valid points. I was raised in the AV, and I understand. Probably the number one complaint from the youth is that there's nothing to do out here. And I get that, and I understand that. And thus the conflict that kind of comes out when, I'm preparing to make a decision. My question is, what leeway do we have in order to make this work? What steps can be taken to ensure that, in my mind, ultimately, if I see a best scenario picture, I have the peace of mind and, the confidence that, this place can stay open and that there will be no incidents, there will be no violations. However, that requires a huge vote of confidence from myself and from the other planning commissioners, and I understand the conflict there. So, similar to what we were doing in the very beginning, I know that there was a kind of a temporary point where we kind of assessed the, I believe it was 6 months, where we had checkups. Is this something that we'd like to continue with? Is this something at the end of that point, can we continue with the permit? And I'm wondering if something like that is appropriate, again, as a last chance kind of resort. Is this something that we can do? And are there certain qualifications that we can put in place that can give us that peace of mind that, these violations won't continue, that, however difficult it might be to take responsibility for the violations, that, ultimately we're going to side on whether or not they're being, looked at. So that's my question. Kind of where
it's multiple questions, but my suggestion is we address it this way. The matter before us is a revocation hearing, not an application to amend conditions. That be correct?
That is the request that is before you.
Right. So, if it was, if the majority of the commission wished to continue, suggest modifications to the conditional use permit, or a myriad of other things, under the agenda item that we're faced with here this evening, we have two choices. Well, three maybe. Uphold the recommendation of staff, deny the recommendation of staff, or continue the matter. That be correct?
You probably do have, as a commission, the legal authority with the hearing open on the use permit to modify conditions if you feel that's appropriate. However, from a staff perspective, I would recommend that you not do that from the dais. And I think particularly in this case, the applicant has already indicated to you in testimony significant operating changes, which include the giving up of an alcohol license that are certainly different than what the original use permit was considered under and the conditions. So I would advise that if you are considering possible modifications or other approaches, that the continuance would be the appropriate venue or appropriate action to take in that case.
Thank you. Ms. Corbett, care to offer anything? No? All right.
One question.
Go ahead.
Is it okay if we can call Officer Wally here and ask him something regarding Officer Wally? If we can ask him a question regarding if there's...
Certainly. It's detective, is it not?
Detective, yes.
Deputy or detective. Each detective is also a deputy. My name is Daniel Welle, W-E-L-L-E.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. The question I have since that incident occurred, like, have you seen any changes since then, or there anything new, or like regarding, since then, if there's any changes, like in improving?
Personally, I took an interest in the industry theater after the shooting that occurred. Obviously, when things like that come to our attention, we want to keep an eye on it to make sure that there's no issue that is ongoing. My records personally are not. I don't have anything that maybe Deputy Jordan has as far as call increases afterwards, but there was definitely a noticeable change, I would say, in the guests and probably the size of the incidents that occurred. They were much smaller. We did set up an operation and surveilled a a memorial that occurred there. There was no issues at that time, and quite frankly, half the people that were there were representing a slain gang member. It was their families, not the gang, and so they had a good crowd of people, as in good as in quality of character. As far as increased calls for service after the shooting, you would probably have to defer to Detective Jordan, but personally, in the attention that I've paid them since the shooting, I've seen, I would say, a little more of a positive change in the fact that there don't seem to be the same types of incidents. Quite frankly, I work with reliable informants on a day-to-day basis. The industry theater came to my attention before the shooting. For a little while, we didn't even know where these individuals were going and drinking, where they were claiming to drink, and we found it later. We didn't think that the industry theater was their type of venue. Since that shooting, and since, quite frankly, since I heard that he dropped his liquor license, I would say roughly about that time was when I started noticing these changes and stopped hearing about incidents at the industry theater through these confidential, reliable informants.
All right. Thank you.
Detective, I'm sorry. And I don't recall the names of all the folks that provided statements that we have in the record, but I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it was your investigation and an observation that alcoholic beverages were in the premise other than beer.
It was not my investigation.
Oh, it wasn't.
I had the initial call-out the night of the shooting. The investigation was conducted by Detective Gutierrez.
Okay.
And I believe is actually ongoing through Detective Niddle at this time. I did see bottles of other types of alcohol that were not beer. Quite frankly, I could not tell you exactly what. That wasn't my primary
But
concern.
it's clear in your memory that
They were obviously bottles of liquor and not beer.
okay. If you don't mind holding right there, Mr. Huffaker may have a question or two for you, if you don't mind.
Definitely.
Mr. Huffaker, do you have anything you want to ask this deputy? No? The answer is no?
Feel free.
Sure. That's why I'm asking you if you have anything you want to ask him.
Well, as I stated previously, there was alcohol there, and it is alcohol that we had confiscated. I believe that's what the officer saw. And I just would like to make that point clear that we did not bring in alcohol or anything. People had it. We took it. As he was saying, the event was pretty out of hand. We did our best. People.
Do you have any questions for him? No?
No, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you both.
Probably to answer any potential questions that there would have been, I don't know if the alcohol was for sale. There was no way to tell, but it was there.
But it is clear under the license that the only thing allowed on the premise is beer, nothing else.
I'm not contesting that.
Well, I'm clear on that, but you're not an expert in that. All right, thank you very much. Did you have any others? All right. Any questions or comments for staff? You want to complete your comments, or are you done?
I am done until you have other questions or a question about
very good
proposed courses of action.
All right, thank you. I do have one, or a couple, actually. It was pointed out by Ms. Golub that one of the principal reasons to ask for continuance is so that the city attorney or deputy city attorney would receive some sort of information, or I'm using my words, not hers. It's clear to me that the city attorney doesn't make decisions for the commission. The commission makes decisions based on evidence presented to it in a hearing like this. Is that correct?
That is correct, Chairman.
All right. Mr. Ladvik, the request for a continuance because Mr. Huffaker isn't represented by counsel. Do you have anything to offer there?
The code permits you, in your discretion, to deny or grant the continuance. I'll just note that that's a request that's typically made at the beginning of the hearing and not at the end. In terms of the power of the commission, you can conclude the testimony. You can refer the matter to staff if you wanted a proposal or a suggested resolution and give guidance to staff. I concur with Mr. Ludicky that it becomes difficult sometimes to come up with new conditions should you be inclined to create new ones on the fly. So you could conclude the hearing, offer instructions from the panel, and act accordingly, or you do have the power to approve or deny the application as well as consider modifications. I will add one other thing. There's been a suggestion by the respondent that he raised an issue of intent. I will direct the attention of the chair and the commissioners to the municipal ordinances that have been provided by staff in your packages, and will note that there is no technical requirement for intent. It is the effect on the community that you are considering. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any questions from members? You ready to close the public hearing? Go ahead.
It's for Mr. Huffaker.
Go ahead, if Mr. Huffaker would like to come back.
Removing the liquor license and that aspect from your business, will you be able to maintain a viable business opportunity without the alcohol?
I'd like to say we can. I can't be for sure, but I do know that it seemed like a good way to try and plead my case is to get rid of my alcohol, so you guys know that I'm genuine about trying to rectify the situation. I just wanted to not have something that's such a sticky issue, which would be alcohol, because the ABC is very strict and very cautious, and it just seemed like that was a great cause for concern amongst the Planning Commission. So I felt that if I got rid of my alcohol, then it would potentially make my establishment a safer, less tricky place for me to work with the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's another question for you, I think. Commissioner Hart?
So just so we're clear, because you used the word coerced 2 years ago. So this commission, nor the city of Lancaster, made you give up that license, right?
No, I did it on my own in an effort to try and work with the people who are concerned about whether or not my establishment is safe.
Okay, I just want to make sure that was clear for the record. Thank you.
As I recall from your testimony a couple of years ago, and after reading the minutes of those hearings, you were pretty adamant about having the ability to sell alcoholic beverages because of the potential of failure economically if you didn't have that revenue source. Do you recall talking about that?
I do. However, now...
Am I misstating it?
Well, you're not misstating it, but that was 2 years ago, and times have changed, and I have since seen that with more of the recent connections and networking that I have done, that I feel that I could potentially feasibly sustain my business without alcohol, and if that is a way to work with the community, then I'm more than happy to do that, even if it means a slight loss of revenue.
All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
I have a question. So, I hate to play the if game, but if we continued, if we kept talking about things, is it kind of in your mindset, would you be able to, if something happened, if there were more violations in the future, if no matter how inconvenient it was to enforce, would you be willing to take the responsibility as the business owner and the owner of this location?
Yes. Well, I'd like to say I take responsibility for the accidents. I think it's difficult to really express how difficult it is to prevent these things from happening. And it's not that I'm saying I didn't do it, it's that I'm saying it's just really hard to stop it. I mean, I have the same problem any high school has, and if you're saying that they need better security, then I can't connect those 2 points. I'm sorry, I kind of lost myself. However, I don't have any problems that are uncommon amongst any other establishment that hosts large amounts of youths, and we definitely do our best to maintain everything we can.
So yes.
Yes. Anything else?
Do you have anything more you want to tell us before we close the public hearing?
No. Thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. So is there any objection from the members on closing the public hearing? Is there anything we haven't discussed or allowed the public to speak on, or the respondent, as we all feel like we've had a full opportunity here, or
I
is there
have
more?
one question.
Go ahead.
There was reference made that if you had more time, maybe you would have an attorney tonight. Am I correct about that? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Was that your statement?
I at least would have had the opportunity to consult a lawyer because now I'm kind of just going here by myself, so I'm not entirely well-versed on the legal
I think
matters.
it's my understanding, but I need clarification. This isn't a court of law. I don't know if this would have been an appropriate venue for you to have an attorney here with you. I mean, consulting with one, that's definitely within your rights, I'm sure.
Yes. Well, it might not have helped, but it also might not have hurt, and since I haven't had the opportunity, I feel that is somewhat unfair.
Okay,
Because I deserve the opportunity to see
what I
whether or not
wanted
the
to
lawyer can
confirm
help
is
me.
this isn't a court of law. And I know 20 days doesn't seem like a lot when you have a lot of things to get together and process this, but there may have been some time for you to have consulted somebody, I would think. I just
Yeah.
kind of wanted to clarify that.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not in the best financial standing, and I have not gotten an opportunity
Understood.
to consult a lawyer. However, given time, I am certain that I would have been able to gather funds so that I could consult a lawyer.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify it. I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. All right, then. Anything further from the members? Have we rung this out? All right, then. Without objection, we'll close the public hearing on this matter. And before considering a motion on the recommendation, you all may have something to say or to add or not. So if you'd like to say something and ask one another questions or do whatever you'd like to do, please speak right up.
2 years ago, my biggest worry for Mr. Huffaker's Industry Theater was the worry about the alcohol getting out of hand, because we had just gone through that with another place, and there was very similar circumstances as we were having here. And Mr. Huffaker, one of the questions I asked in the last meeting was, could we rewrite the conditions? And according to Mr. Ludicky, we would have to have a continuance or time to do that. That was one of the questions I asked. I would like to join with Commissioner Christ and have a venue open for youth. I've raised daughters in this town, and I was raised in this town, and it was a complaint. There was never anything to do. And I think that Mr. Huffaker giving up his ABC license was showing the remorse that Ms. Corbett was talking about. He realizes that there's something that he's going to have to do and change that. And with Pastor Greatman over there offering to hold church services, there's varieties of conditions that need to be revisited if we're going to allow it to stay open. So I guess what I'm arguing for is continuance, and to see if we could hash out some conditions that would probably be acceptable to allow this venue to try to go forward, with the proviso that we have the 6-month review. One shooting and 4 people being shot is a pattern to me. I mean, it's not a one-time thing, it's 4 people. And that's not a good thing. And there was a concern to me that one of the deputies found an illegal substance in your desk, and I was hoping that that wouldn't happen again, because that certainly can make running a business a lot harder when you're under the influence of that. So I would suggest that we probably should make the motion on revocation and decide how we're going to vote. And then if there's not a consensus, then we could continue.
Well, when it's time for a motion, I'll entertain one. Meanwhile, let's all offer the comments we care to offer. And thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Anyone? No? Mr. Chris?
Yeah, I'd just kind of like to reiterate, this is incredibly hard for me because I do see, if we allow it to continue and there is one additional violation that points back on our reflection here as a city, and people will start to ask the questions, you knew this was happening, this had happened in the past, why didn't you stop it? I don't want people asking me that. I don't want people to ever wonder that. I don't want that to happen. So, it does take a great deal of kind of confidence to be able to even postpone this. So I just kind of want to make that clear for the record, and just so everyone understands that's my thought process on it. And I do think also, these issues happened, the major ones happened all at one time, and there were subsequent ones after that. But, after testimony from the deputy, I see a small improvement as an improvement, and I do not really see any reason why to not at least give this a little bit more thought.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Chairman Bose?
Go ahead.
I had a clarification.
Go ahead.
If we do continue this hearing,
yes,
do we need to vote this motion up or down tonight? I mean, how would that?
I believe we can entertain whatever valid motion is offered, assuming it's appropriate to offer it and it's properly seconded. And we deliberate and determine that we're going to vote. Notwithstanding the recommendation that's before us, there's no obligation, I believe, on our part to vote on the recommendation one way or the other. Now, somebody, we've got a couple of attorneys in the room, they can correct me if I'm wrong.
Your choices are completely variable. There can be a motion to approve the recommendation, a motion to deny the recommendation, a motion to modify and set out conditions. You can continue the vote altogether. If you can vote to modify and then direct the planning director to come back with recommendations for consideration. So you have the full panoply of options available to you.
So to suffice it to say that a properly formed motion and properly seconded is within our purview to basically do anything that's legal.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, then. Anyone else care to chat each other up before I consider a motion? Anyone?
Chairman?
Go ahead.
I'd rather not discuss it here as far as the additional kind of, stipulations that we want to add. I'd rather be able to kind of take that home and think about it and be able to look at it that way. That makes it a little bit more difficult.
Assuming there is a motion to continue and assuming it's successful, you may have that opportunity.
Okay.
I don't know that I'd bet dinner on it, though. That's an editorial comment. Some may think I'm rather harsh in my questioning of people, and it's my nature. I once told a senior county counsel for the County of Los Angeles it was in my genes. He wasn't sure what I meant. As an educated man, I'm surprised that he didn't understand. I may not express the empathy that others have here tonight, but I've raised three sons, and a stepson and a stepdaughter. And every one of them have said to me that there's nothing to do in this valley. I find that interesting. I don't ever recall saying that as a youth. There was always plenty of things to do. And fortunately, law enforcement was pretty thin in those days, not like it is here today. 2 years ago, we spent a great deal of time, all of us, 5 of us, as you pointed out, Commissioner Harvey, and really spent some time with this. I certainly had reservations about granting the sale of beer and wine, and I still do. to come before this commission tonight and suggest, because Mr. Huffaker has given up his liquor license, that makes it all better. To me, it doesn't make it all better. Under the municipal code, it's cut and dry. Somebody once said, I believe in the law and regulation. Another person had said, I believe in redemption. Well, I believe in redemption too. But when you read the word, there are consequences. Whether you be a Christian, whether you read the Old Testament or the New Testament, there are consequences to actions. And it's clear to me that the violations pointed out in this recommendation give me no authority beyond the recommendation to support the staff's recommendation on revocation. As painful as it is for Mr. Huffaker and those who are involved with this, but frankly, 2 years of supposedly following the rules and clearly understanding what they were, I believe in forgiveness. However, I cannot overlook the damage that has been done to our community and the risk to our community in the future. So I would not support a motion to continue nor a motion to amend the conditions that are on the conditional use permit. That's just my opinion. However, I will entertain whatever motion is properly made, and if it's properly seconded, we certainly will deliberate it and vote on it.
So I move that we approve resolution number 13-18, revoking conditional use permit number 11-10.
Thank you. Do you have a second? No one wants to second the motion? So, no second on the motion to approve the recommendation of staff, basically.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
I move that we modify the motion pending with the addition of the planning director's remarks. It was the last option that Mr. Huffaker had option.
You're going to have to be clearer than that. Modifying the motion is not a motion. What do you want to do?
So if maybe the city attorney or someone could help me out with the motion. It was the last option that you presented.
I believe you're referencing the motion to make a motion to modify the conditional use permit and to defer the matter to the staff to make recommendations according to your suggested guidelines.
Which would then come back to us.
Yes. But it would not open the hearing. It would simply be to address the recommended modifications. And of course, the respondent would have an opportunity to comment on that at that time.
I think I'm clear on the motion. Do we have a second? Do we have a second?
I second that.
All right. The motion is to, in effect, modify the conditions of approval and refer it back to staff to consider modification to the existing CUP. So, comments? Anyone? Certainly the maker of the motion and the second have the privilege of speaking to it.
Sure. I'd like to get kind of clarification about how that would go about. I do know that it's something that I would like to do. However, I'm not sure about the correct venue for how to work with staff and whatnot in order to kind of work on those conditions.
Historically, the commission has given guidance to staff when we've not sustained the recommendation of staff, which rarely happens, but at any rate, it has happened in the past. And I'm sure Mr. Ludicky can address that. You understand what Mr. Christ and Mr. Molly, I'm assuming, are asking?
Yeah, let me tell you how I interpret what is being said. Getting back to the issue, as I indicated, the respondent has stated that they have already made a modification to their operating approach. If I understand the direction from the motion, it would be for staff to meet with the respondent and whoever from his side we wish to, because I really think what we need to try to get an understanding of is what exactly are they planning to do in terms of running this business. They would still hold a valid CUP, but it seems that they don't want to operate in the same manner that they have. But that does raise questions about, does a hearing need to be renoticed? Does there need to be a formal approach to modify the existing conditional use permit because maybe it's now got a use approach that's different? And quite frankly, I can't determine that without meeting with them. So if that is the desire of the commission to try to figure that out and have staff report back to you what's happening, I would suggest that be the direction to staff should this motion pass, and I would ask that we have 60 days to do that, to the January meeting.
My understanding was it's continuous, so we can have another hearing.
So your second motion was an understanding it was a motion to continue?
Continue for like another, we give another extra time.
Yeah, but that was not the motion, Mr. Molly.
Okay, so
do you stand by your second or
so
no?
this one, would you a little bit, so what exactly is, so in 60 days, what's going to happen in 60 days?
Essentially, staff would meet with the applicant or their representatives. We would try to determine what their intent is as far as operation of the facility, and we would provide back to the commission what needs to happen in order for that request to go forward.
Okay, I personally I feel like we can continue and give it like another 30 days or 60 days.
I appreciate what you said. However, that is not the motion you seconded.
So I apologize for that.
Well, you don't have to apologize. You just if the second stands, it stands. If you want to withdraw it, you have that right.
May I clarify?
Pardon?
May I clarify?
I thought we did, but go ahead.
My goal with the motion is to essentially have the planning director come back with more options. And in essence, we are delaying this. So in essence, it is kind of a continuance of this motion while not...
Well, you're really not denying it. The motion to deny is to sustain what the director has recommended to us. That would be the motion.
I think we should make another motion. So
well, hang on, guys. Time out. There's a motion and a second. We as long as we all understand it, then it's going to be voted on.
How about if I withdraw the motion second?
If you withdraw it, then it's still up for.
I would like to withdraw.
You'll withdraw. All right. So, Commissioner Christ has offered us a motion to modify the CUP and have the planning director come back to us with revised conditions. The planning director has suggested it's going to take him 60 days. Anybody want to second that?
would be reopening this hearing, or is this hearing going to be closed and it would be a new noticed meeting?
The hearing we have now, the public hearing has been closed as of right now.
Could the motion reopen the meeting, and then we wouldn't have to
We
renotice?
have a motion on the floor. We either get a second or it fails. Let's deal one thing at a time. So, anyone care to second that motion? I'll poll the board again. No. All right, it fails. That motion fails. So, we're still here, and the chair is ready to hear a motion. I may remind you, I have the right to offer a motion without giving up the chair. So, I will offer a motion. My own motion to adopt Resolution 13-18, revoking the conditional use permit number 11-10.
Second.
All right. Any comments from anyone?
Point of clarification.
Yes, go ahead.
Should this vote go through,
Yes.
the applicant or the respondent in this case could reapply for application in what, a year?
There's a period of time, and I'm sure what, 6 months or a year, I'm not sure which. They can't apply for the same use, however. Would that be correct?
1 year.
1 year? And what about this same exact use?
It can be the request for the same exact use.
Can be, all right. But it's 1 year. And secondarily, no one's asked this, but there's a opportunity to appeal whatever this commission agrees to, whatever the majority agrees to. It can be appealed to City Council. There's a process, a fee, and a timeline.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions or comments from anyone? Mr. Chris? No? Anyone else? Mr. Mully? Mr. Hall? All right, then. Since there's no further discussion, please vote.
Does everybody vote?
You have to reset it, I think. It didn't. Let's do it again.
Motion passes 4-3.
All right, thank you. All right, then, that brings us to director's announcements. Mr. Ludicky?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Commission agenda, anyone have anything they'd like to bring forward? No? All right, then. It's time for public business from the floor on non-agendized items. This portion of the agenda allows an individual the opportunity to address the commission on any subject regarding city business. Under state legislation, no action can be taken on non-agenda items. Members of the public should be aware of this when addressing the commission regarding items not specifically referenced on the agenda. And we'd ask you to complete a speaker's card if you care to address us. Do we have any speakers on non-agenda items?
I don't believe we have any cards, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Anyone wishing to address us? No? All right, then. This meeting stands adjourned to a special meeting on agenda review for Monday, December 9th. What? Speak up.
I should have spoken up earlier, actually.
Sorry.
Yes. Well, I quite frankly didn't know till we handled the previous issue. We have no cases scheduled for December, so there is really no reason that I know of from staff standpoint to actually conduct a December meeting, but it is the commission's discretion.
However, we have to adjourn to a date and time specific.
Yes.
So if we adjourn to the agenda review and then there is no items, then the city clerk will post a notice that the meeting is canceled and indicate when the next meeting is, right?
Yes, we can.
Or we can adjourn to the January date. What would you suggest?
Hold on. Normal January special meeting date would be January 13th.
So what, is that what you're recommending?
That would be my recommendation, Mr. Chairman. 13th.
January 13th.
This Martin Luther King Day, so that'd be the next, so we'd have 2 weeks.
Yeah, help me with this, will you? Throw it out the window. All right, then. So it's your recommendation that we adjourn to January 13th?
Yes.
All right, then. We stand adjourned till January 13th, 2014, for a special meeting for agenda review in the planning conference room here at City Hall. Thank you for your attendance and your work tonight.